All righty.
Hi, everyone.
Hmm.
Hello, hello. Are
Hmm.
we verified live?
Let me see. I'm going
Yep.
to,
Re-verified live. Pinch me, yes.
I think we
Mhm.
are. I think it's on. Let me go to we're live. We're doing it. All
Awesome.
right.
Well, thank you so much for being here, everybody. I'm Clarissa here with my dear friends Babs and Kristen. We are Unbecoming Karen, and we will go into why we chose that name in a few minutes. But first, we want to do a little bit of housekeeping. We find that it helps our analytical minds to have a bit of a roadmap and be able to know what to expect a little bit. Our nervous systems can settle in a little bit when we kind of know where we're going with this conversation and who we are, why we're here. So this first part, the next 5 minutes or so, will be scripted because we're still learning how to do this. And while we're doing it, we honor that words matter. And so we want to make sure we are sharing what feels important and potent to share before we open it up and let spirit channel its way through and have these heart-to-heart conversations that are fully unscripted, as you will see. We get to have human moments sometimes where we just, whew. All right, so we will do just this quick little housekeeping and then we'll do drop in. So a quick little meditation to bring everybody in, to welcome in our guides, our non-physical teams to support this conversation. And then we'll do discussions and check-ins. So we'd love to hear where people are watching from, what is coming up for you today, and feel free at any point to text in the chat conversation. And then we'll do a drop-in. Do we call it a dropout? What do we call it? We'll do like a healing meditation at the end where we'll bring in all of the loose ends, all of the energy, all of the big feelings and things that we moved through in the conversation and do a channeled healing to support us as we then make our way back out into the world. All right, so here we go. Unbecoming Karen is not just a live stream conversation. It is a sacred container dedicated to healing the harmful and deeply rooted white supremacist programming that has become increasingly more visible in recent years. I would say recent months, yes. We open to possibilities for a future free from harm and full of care. Hosted by 3 white women healers, we are committed to doing our own work, unlearning toxic and repressive programming and creating space for new possibilities as we deep dive into the uncomfortable truths of our histories, values, beliefs, and choices. We're here to hold space for the messy, imperfect process of healing, honoring the fact that no one has it all figured out, and that the only way to find our way forward is together. Through candid conversations and quantum healing practices, we share the challenges of confronting our triggers, addressing discomfort, learning to move through the squirmy nature of this work with humor and embodiment. We found that there is only so far we can go with our individual healing before we must face and heal collective and ancestral trauma and harm that may fuel many choices being made today. We believe that healing is not about perfection. It's about being real, raw, and committed to the process together. So a few ground rules as you sit with us, as you listen, as you tune in. We are all about body sovereignty, so please honor your body. And part of that is reclaiming what white supremacy programming, colonialism has taken from us, and the opportunity to actually honor what we need. So if you need to step away, if you need to take some deep breaths, if you need to stretch, if you need to go outside while you're listening, all of those things are welcomed and encouraged. We all experience this differently. So this being recorded also allows you to come back and listen to it later. Assume best intentions. So language is limited. We are human. We are here learning and fumbling through this time all together and doing our best. And we may occasionally say things that are offensive. We may say things that are triggering. And what we're here to do is move through those things, honor them, and heal what's there for us to see and shift and move and change. This is a space where we are practicing fierce vulnerability, No one here is bad or wrong. We have been programmed to believe very harmful and divisive things, and we are here to bring it into the light and heal it. Notice when you are feeling judgmental or righteous or better than others. Be curious and open and gentle with yourself. And please, please use the chat. We want to hear from you. So we may occasionally use jargon or some word or languaging that you don't understand what we're talking about or it's not clear. We ask that you let us know how we can clarify things for you and the rest of our audience. And then if you feel like things are triggering and you have questions, please put things in there. We very much believe there are no stupid questions. And jargon is like a real thing. So if we're using language that doesn't make sense, let us know. We intend for this to be an hour, but it may be a little bit more. So please honor yourself and leave when you need to. You can always come back and watch the recording. While we expect there to be triggers, this topic is very triggering. That's why we don't often go there as white folks. We see triggers as healing opportunities rather than something to be avoided. And yes, they can be uncomfortable as fuck. And we are here with you, and we will all experience this differently. So, again, listen to your body and your needs. And lastly, we are not for everyone. So, honor yourself. If this does feel aligned, please stick with us and ask questions and become engaged members of this community. We love your contributions. And if it doesn't feel aligned, that's okay too. We encourage you to seek out a conversation that feels more aligned for you. So, for those of you who are ready to go, let's do it.
Thanks, Clarissa. Yeah, so Clarissa just shared a lot. And a lot of what she was talking about was about honoring our bodies and trying to be really present and embodied. And so a part of doing that, at least for me and for us, is a practice of dropping in, which is essentially just presencing ourselves to the now, calling ourselves back from anything that might have been happening in the past, anything that we're worried about happening in the future, and really trying to come home to this present, eternal now moment. So that's what we're going to be doing. Again, engage in this in the way that feels right and good for you, right? Everything I say is a suggestion. If something else in your body is like, I want to do this, then follow that, right? Follow what is coming up in your body. So as we land here, I'm going to invite everyone to maybe just start moving a little bit, settling in, just becoming aware of this body, of this meat suit, of this place that our soul inhabits. And as you do, maybe you start to take some breaths. Maybe you want to take a nice big exhale, really clear yourself out. Just really starting to become present to yourself, to this body. I know for me, some physical touch really helps. So maybe you want to place hands on your body. Maybe you want to feel something in your physical environment. Remind yourself that you are here right now in this place, in this time. And as you do this, I'm going to invite you to maybe start bringing some awareness towards your seat, that place where your body is meeting the chair where you sit, or maybe if you're standing, you bring your awareness to your feet, where you are coming in contact with the ground. Just becoming aware that there is a physical presence outside of you that is supporting you here right now. Becoming aware of the ground, of the seat, of where you make contact, and maybe letting yourself be a little heavier. Leaning into the seat more, settling firmly across your entire foot. Presence, embodiment, fully here, fully now. And if it feels good, I'll invite you to maybe start extending some roots out from the base of your spine, from the bottoms of your feet, and with permission, anchoring yourself into the ground, into the land on which you are now present. And sending some gratitude to Mama Gaia. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to root into you. Thank you for providing me this luscious home, this beautiful place to live. Thank you for all of the resources that you bestow upon us. Thank you. And as you send that gratitude out, maybe receive something back with an inhale, receiving some earthly nourishment, some grounding, some sustenance. Whew. Yeah. And you can stay here, just really connected with your root, connected with your base. Or if you want, I invite you to just let your energy start spiraling back up that central spinal column, all the way up towards your heart. And maybe you feel called to place hands on your heart, just inviting love to just take up some space inside of you here. Feeling the love of your own heart maybe radiate out, maybe the love of Source, the love of God, just feeling the presence of this unconditional love. Maybe feel it wrap yourself around you, fill your space. And then whenever you feel ready, just let your awareness continue to rise up, 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 almost like a fountain, feeling that love just burst out of your crown, whoo, and shower all around you. And if it feels right here, I'll just invite us to invite in our guides of the highest light, our ancestors of the highest light, blood of our choosing, all of those teachers and divine beings who wish to hold this space as we have this conversation, hold us as we do our healing. Just inviting them to circle around the sacred container that we are opening, thanking them for their presence, trusting that everything that happens here is meant to happen here. Everything that comes up is meant to come up. Everything that needs to be said and heard is said and heard here and now. And with another deep breath or two, I invite you to maybe move your body again, bring some wiggles back, presence yourself in your space by just looking around. Remember that you are still here in a physical space, even though you are now also here with us in this virtual container. Mm-hmm. And we are now grounded, ready, here, present, and held as we dive into today's discussion.
Thanks for that, Kristen. Oh, this feels so good. So I am going to introduce this conversation today, and what we decided we wanted to talk about was Karen. Like, why did we name it Karen? What is a Karen? A lot of people that I've been talking to lately, when I mention it, they don't have any idea. What white people, I'm talking about white friends, like they don't have any idea. They're like, I've never heard of a Karen. What does that mean? So we realize jargon, right? But we want to really be clear on what we mean by that. So I'm going to start by reading what we have on our information page, our landing page for this podcast or vodcast, and then each of us will share a bit about how we relate to Karen, what our Karening looks like, and how we address that. So let me start by what we have written on our page. So according to Merriam-Webster, Karen is a slang term used to disparage, which we don't, I'm just doing an aside, we don't intend disparagement with the use of it, and that's partly why we have it in quotes. A slang term used to disparage a stereotypically middle class, middle aged white woman who rebukes or reports others in angry, sometimes racist public displays. More generally, it is an insult for anyone, though still typically a woman, who shows entitled behavior, especially in the form of outspoken complaints or intrusive criticism. We use the term Karen not to shame or mock, but to name and dismantle the patterns of fear, entitlement, and control that many of us have unconsciously inherited, patterns that cause harm and uphold systems of oppression. And to be clear, we mean no disrespect to people named Karen. I mean, that was part of the discussion about do we want to use this or not? Because I know I wouldn't, if I were named Karen, it would be hard for me. We know and love many who are thoughtful, kind, and nothing like the stereotype. So this is not about a name, it's about a behavior, a system, and a culture that we are committed to healing. So that's a little bit of the sort of the history or what Karen is. And for me, like Karen is a spectrum. like there's Karening behavior, and there are websites that are even, if you wanna, you can watch videos about people being Karens. Personally, I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that because a lot of times those videos are shared with the intent of shaming the quote Karen, which I'm not really interested in engaging in. But for me, kind of the quintessential Karen was the Central Park, the white woman who called the police on the black man that was bird watching in Central Park. She had her dog off leash. He asked her, could you please put your dog on the leash? And she called the police, saying she felt threatened, that she was being threatened by this man, and it was ugly. And to me, that's kind of the quintessential Karening behavior, where she weaponized the police against a black man, which is potentially life-threatening to him. It's, can be extremely dangerous. So to me, that's kind of the poster child, if you will, for Karening. For me, like, we were talking about this recently, and again, the title of the podcast, like, how does Karening show up for me? I'm not going to be the one who's going to be out in Central Park and see a black man, if a black man says something to me, I'm not going to call the police. So that's not the way it shows up for me, but um it's much more kind of subtle than that. And it's really how white supremacist programming lives inside me as a white person. So it's like learning to understand how whiteness lives in me. Um, so a lot of it for me, as we've been in these conversations, like in Kairos last year with Catrice Goddard, and the white privilege piece and the white fragility piece, especially, and I think that's where a lot of Karening comes from, right? Is white fragility, meaning like that woman in Central Park, like she was crying, she was on the phone, sobbing, crying, terrified. And there was nothing. It was a man who was bird watching who asked her to put her dog on leash. Now that again is the definition of like white fragility, right? Like now, who knows
Well,
what her
and
experience was at the time, but go ahead,
Well, and
Kristen.
yeah, I want to like bring this like personal, right? So like
Mhm,
instead of like looking outside of ourselves of like what other people are doing for me, right? Like how does that fragility, how have I seen that show up, right? And
mhm,
in that same instance, well, not same instance, but like an example, right? I remember being at it was called the Southern Leadership Jam. So it was like a big like healing like trying to heal across like racial lines, right? And there was a moment when like we had broken up into like like racially sex. So like black folks were together, like white folks were together. There was like maybe one or two other like identity groups together. And our group had ended, and I was like chatting with someone and like getting ready to walk back into the main space. Um, and someone like stopped me and was like, Kristen, like, didn't you notice that like they are still in there like caucusing, right? Like everyone they were still in group, right? And I did it, right? Like I was totally in my own thing
mhm,
talking to this person, just like walking back in, right? Meanwhile, like I was about to like interrupt like the caucus that was like for black folks, right? And as a result after, right? Like it brought me to tears, right? Like I had to go away and like I had to process that like here I am, a person who thinks that I'm very self-aware, very aware of what's going on around me, right? And even and here I am, right? Like not being aware of my surroundings, totally oblivious to like the needs of other people, only really maybe concerned about myself. And it did bring me to tears, right? Like I had to go away and I remember like feeling so ashamed that I was crying about this, right? That like someone
mhm,
corrected my behavior and it brought me to tears, right? And that
mhm,
like and then I felt ashamed that like having my behavior corrected could bring me to tears. And then like the other person was kind of like had their own judgments of me for like being in tears. And so it was like a whole thing. And I had to like go off on my own and be like, okay, it's okay. Like, this is part of the process. Like, this is part of the healing. Right. But like, it's that. Right. And frankly, like, I needed to cry that out. Right. Like, I needed to let that move out of me. I needed to be like, oh my gosh. Right. And like, I didn't need like anyone else to hold that for me necessarily. Right. But,
mhm.
um, But also like there is that other space too of like, how have we closed ourselves off because to holding space for each other around issues like this as white people, right? Because the person who corrected me was a white person. So like even she was having trouble like holding space for like my emotional display, right? Because I feel like that's another
Yeah.
white people thing is like no emotions, logic, brain, rational. Emotions are too much. Um,
Yep.
except for if they serve us, except for if it serves me to get my way in a manipulative way.
Right.
Um, so that's like how I've seen it, right? In myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much nuance to that too. There's so many pieces to it. And I think that's an important thing that we're holding space for in these conversations is for the white people, us white people to come and have the emotional
Mm.
reactions that if you were to have it in a, not solely white container, um, would be would um affect the space very differently. Right, because that was one of the shocking things that I learned, and this was part of my parenting, was because I know when after George Floyd's murder, that was when I first, and again, I'm ashamed to say this, right? But it's only that recently that I've been really engaging with this conversation. And there's my white privilege that I didn't felt that I didn't need to before that, and that breaks my heart quite a bit. But I'm here now. Um, but I found myself going into rooms that were being held by Black women and, online virtual spaces, right, during the pandemic and listening and um, seeing, like learning about what white fragility was and seeing the white women that would just be crying and like I thought as a healer, I was like, oh, that's good. Like feeling your emotions and expressing your emotions coming from a background of shutting down the emotions like you were just talking to, Kristen, right? So thinking that that was like, that's great. Let it out. But then learning like, no, actually that then it centers you as the white person, right? So you have to be like mindful of where you are and what you do then. And so that's what I love about this space we're creating. Like, this is the space where you can come and feel it and express it and be held. So that's been a big learning for me in all of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead, Kristen.
No, please, Clarissa.
I was just gonna thank you, Babs, for acknowledging that because I mean I feel like we are taught to both center ourselves and martyr ourselves. So
Right.
it's difficult to walk that line. And as one of our teachers, Ina, always says, bring a mop because this
Yeah.
part is going to be messy. And another way I find myself caring often is perfectionism. And
Mm,
so my experience after George Floyd was murdered was that I had known for quite some time that I needed to be part of this conversation, but I had no idea how.
mm,
And so since I didn't know how, that was a story that kept playing in my head over and over. I remained removed and paralyzed because I didn't want to cause more harm. I didn't
mm,
want to get it wrong. I didn't want to risk like putting myself out there and it being known how ignorant I was, you know. Um, and so there are all of these layers that keep us stuck in that place of silence, and that's intentional. That has been intentionally layered in over the generations so that we don't speak up, and we doubt ourselves and we doubt each other, and we um, like what comes to mind right now is people turning each other in. Um, like that's something that I really hope that's not anything I would ever find myself doing. But I know it's something that is in my biological DNA. It's in this culture. When things get super scary, you point to the person next to you and
mm,
offer them up instead.
mm,
And that's been such a like I think of the witch trials, and it's just like it's in our biology. to keep ourselves safe at all expense. And so now we have an opportunity to come and unpack some of that. And we actually talk about this behind the scenes all the time. Would I be willing to put myself in harm's way? And I love that we are seeing a mass awakening right now where white people are the ones who are protesting so that people of color who have been doing this for decades and centuries and millennia can take a back seat because they are more vulnerable at the moment.
Yeah.
And every moment we have this very real threat that probably won't shrink anytime soon. Maybe, I mean, may it be so, where we get to look at where where's my body going into freeze, paralysis, where am I afraid to step forward because my own personal safety feels at risk, and it's at the risk of someone else. So there's just a couple things that show up for me as we're walking this path right now.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up perfectionism, Clarissa, because like as we had like picked this topic, like that is what had arisen for me this week is like the biggest way that like Karening shows up like for me is like through my like perfectionist tendencies. Like I like to joke that like I'm like a recovering like know-it-all and like recovering perfectionist, right? And so like it's like that energy of like having to have the last word, right? Like someone shares their experience and then I say, well, actually, you know what I mean? Well, actually, you know what I mean? And it's like totally devalues like their experiential truth, you know what I mean? Or like the perfectionism piece of like you said, Clarissa, of like, how do I like hold myself back because it needs to be perfect? But then how do I also hold other people to a standard of perfection? And then I'm like blaming, judging, canceling, and like, frankly, like I say this, and also when I look back, like I've done a lot of work on this, right? Like I have like when I think of like my beginning healing journey and like the first time, like like coming aware of like perfectionism and all that and like working on that. But I still see it come up sometimes. Like I have signs like in my office that it's like over planning and perfection kills magic, right? To like remind myself, right, that like perfection isn't actually like that. It just is a stopgate, right? Like making us, because like that's part of how white supremacy like stays functional, right? Is like if everyone who has the power to change something, who has like social capital, feels that they can't do anything unless it's perfect, but then we can't ever do perfect things, then no one does anything. And then here we are today. Hi, we've made it, right? And so like there's this invitation of both like how do we make space for other people's imperfections? How do we love them through their mistakes? How do we love ourselves through our mistakes, right? Because like as white folks, like we like have forgotten how to live in community, right? Like when I think of like Black organizers, like part of their strength is their resiliency in community because that's how they have survived generations of fucking crazy ass racism and brutality, right? But as white folks, like the way the system has used us, right, has been to separate us from our connections, to individualize us, to make sure that we don't have that power, that we don't have that support, so that we are pawns, so that we get used, And so like the other piece for me is like how does my like caring whiteness show up? It's like it's in my isolation, the way I pull away from people, the way I don't trust others to hold me, to accept me like
Yeah.
like that I feel like is a huge like scar on like white supremacist culture is this constant fear of being measured and judged and held up to this like unrealistic standard.
Yeah. That's so powerful, all of that both of you just said. And I love like the perfectionism piece and call out culture, right? I mean, it's just so supported. There's so much juice and energy behind call out culture and shaming and blaming and getting joy in breaking people down and knocking them down. Like that's the definition of Karening, right? Like one of the definitions is like finger pointing and taking joy in putting somebody else in their place. And one of the
Oof,
examples of this
that
that came up
phrase,
for me,
Babs.
put them in their place,
Oh my
right?
God. Like,
One of the examples of this that came up for me big time recently was Nancy Mace when a bunch of the Epstein survivors, like 120 of them, had a closed door meeting on Capitol Hill somewhere, right? I remember them on the steps of the Capitol, I think it was, having a press conference, speaking their truth, right? And then they had a closed door hearing, apparently. And I don't know who was in the thing, but I remember seeing a video. Now, Nancy Mace is not my favorite person. I think she's just, there's so much anger and, you know, Karenness, frankly, when she speaks a lot. And so it would be very easy for me to want to attack her and blame her and change something, right? I could feel that in me. Well, apparently she was in this meeting. I don't know. Did you guys see this clip of her leaving? So she had to leave the meeting. So there was a clip of her walking down the hall, barely, not even keeping it together, but desperately trying to keep it together while she was walking down the hall. I don't know where she was trying to get, but I think she was trying to get out of the cameras so she could go and fall apart. Because listening to those women speak triggered her so fully that she just had to flee. And the media had a field day with that.
Mm.
And it was this, my whole body is shaking when I think about that because, I mean, she's very anti-trans. I mean, her big thing is like, you know, not letting trans women be in women's bathrooms, and it's just ugliness. So the part of me that's angry about that wanted to join them in attacking her. But as a woman, and especially as a survivor of sexual trauma myself, I saw what was happening with her. And I just wanted to stand in front of her and tell the cameras to just go the fuck away and leave her alone. You know, she's like having this
Mm.
human reaction to this horrors that she just heard. So it's like that vulturistic kind of like wanting to jump, wanting to leap, wanting to pounce on that which is considered other, or that is being judged. And it's so easy when you feel righteous. I love that we say that in our housekeeping. I was really listening to all of that today, and the whole thing about notice when you're feeling righteousness, or that kind of thing. It's like so easy when you feel righteous, like we're on the right side, so therefore we get to attack them and name call them, right? And laugh at the names that we're
Mhm.
calling them. And so it's just, I don't know. That's been a big part of the healing for me, is seeing how that's part of the programming. Always attacking the
Mhm.
ugliness, right? Yeah.
Well, and even that concept, like you said, Babs, of like keeping it together, right?
Hmm.
Where it's like, why do we have to keep it together? There
Right.
is so much happening that should be bringing us to our knees. You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
of like the days of old when women were, it was socially acceptable to keen and howl and wail, and other people would join in so that you weren't alone. And like everyone's grief would just be vocalized and
Yeah.
moved, And it's like, and now like we make fun of people who are feeling too much. We like shame people. We think it's unprofessional. Like, what is
Mhm.
that? Like, you know what I mean? We're like, okay, so being heartless is professional.
Right. Right.
Like, what the heck is that? Oh, is that connected to like being a slave master? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, it's like when your profession is owning people, then yeah, I guess it does make sense to be heartless. Like if your
Yeah.
profession is like to exploit, then like, yeah. But then why do the rest of us have to do that? Like, I'm
Mhm.
like, bring the heart back. We need the
Yeah.
heart back. Like, and that's where I do find like I feel grateful that there's this like rise of like this movement for love, this movement for unity, right? But what makes me feel like worried is that like love holds all of it, right? Like love holds all of it. And like
Mhm. Mhm.
this idea that like, oh, this is the only thing that counts as like love and light. And then like this stuff is, like bringing up generational harm, bringing up the way in which like white culture, colonial culture, the empire, systems of oppression, like harm us all, right? Like harm the planet, harm every single one of us, right? Like that isn't violent. That's just truth. You know what I mean? Or like observational truth for me at least. It feels like truth. Like just feels like like that fragility that you were talking about, Babs, right? Like this inability to face like the truth, whatever that is. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like I was going to tangent to a completely different place that I don't need to go, but
Stick a pin in that for the next conversation, right? Yeah.
One thing that was coming up for me as you were speaking, Babs, and then Kristen, I feel like it came up in what you were saying too. You took it a different route, Kristen, with the slave master, where, yeah, you would have to completely disconnect from your humanity in order to be in that role, right? What was coming through for me, which is a word that I don't think we've used yet on this call, is patriarchy, where these women during the 70s needed to step into the workplace. So there was this glorious rise of feminism and assuming that place. But how they did that, how they got on Capitol Hill eventually, was through being man-like. And what males were supposed to be like was unemotional, detached, cool
Mhm.
as a cucumber, powerful. And the feminine was considered weak. And
Mhm.
so what's interesting when we look at Karens, oftentimes like the Karen persona is a very masculine persona, and it needs to be dominant in order to assert and have the legs to stand on in order to make the point and get the thing that they're after. Um, and so it's very much in that masculine energy. And so when you're talking about Nancy Mays, it must have been a complete um, just breakdown in her reality,
Yeah.
and she felt like she had to keep it together in order to be not canceled, right?
Right. Right.
And that's why like the vultures were circling, ready to pounce on this because she was having a moment of weakness, which is like part
Mhm.
of the human experience. And this, we are all so indoctrinated in this patriarchal culture where what's valued is those stoic masculine traits across the board and everything else you do behind closed doors. And
Yeah.
so there's now this opportunity for us to come together and learn how to wail again together in the streets
Mhm.
when something tragic happens and we're in this in between place where we don't know how to do the old and the new at the same
Yeah.
time, but we're at least feeling the internal conflict that
Mhm.
is leading us into coming back into touch with that wholeness of who we are, the masculine and feminine in balance.
Yeah.
Um, but another word that came up for me was shame. And Babs, you talked about shaming people. For me, one of the places that my Karenness shows up is shame. Like when I didn't know how to respond on social media when George Floyd was murdered, I I was in such a deep place of shame that I
Mhm.
couldn't figure it out and I couldn't do anything. And then I got more embarrassed and more ashamed of myself for not knowing how to move through this.
Yeah.
Um, so again, I'm just grateful that we have a space here, that we had a space in Kairos where we could be very vulnerable and raw and real and say, like, this feels incredibly awkward and embarrassing to say,
Yeah.
and it needs to be said so that I can bring it to the light.
Yeah. And to not
Yeah.
be met with shaming. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like shame has been used as a tool like to keep particularly women, but like lots of
Hmm.
folks, quote, in their place, right?
Yeah.
I also really want to presence too, Clarissa, like the patriarchal masculinity that you were describing is very much like white patriarchal
Mhm.
masculinity, right? Because like other
Mhm.
cultures have had more expressive forms of masculinity. It's
Right.
whiteness that has this rigid masculinity,
Mhm.
and right, like we could also like we can see that in other cultures too, right? But
Mhm.
like it just makes me think of like the ways in which like white settler like culture like emasculated, for example, like Native American men by like infant like connecting them more like with like children because they weren't stoic, because they had humor, because they were connected, frankly, I would say like, with their whole self, right? Um And so like yeah, like that form of masculinity that you were describing is like imprinted onto our men as well, right? Like I feel like that's part of like the problem that like they're feeling, right? Like the restriction that they're feeling, the discomfort that all of these like men are feeling, right? Is like that form of masculinity, that like white supremacist, like Christian nationalist, like form of like what it means to like be a man is so restrictive and oppressive.
Yeah.
Like it's so oppressive, right? Like I remember like learning about when I was younger and I learned about gender and all these things, like feeling such a deep gratitude that I was like assigned female at birth, identified as a woman, because I had so much more room to play with my expression
Yeah.
than the young men that I grew up with, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it can get so easy, right, when we talk about patriarchy and those kinds of things to think that it's like anti-male, but it
Mhm.
really isn't. It's like it's recognizing how all of that programming harms everybody, just in different ways, right? Like when I think about growing up as a, what it must be like growing up as a white male with all the, all of these restrictions about what you can express and feel. And that's why I think perhaps there's such a war against trans community, right? Like, God forbid you should express in a way that's not how you're supposed to. It flies in the face of that very, very much, right? So, yeah, it's such a
It's funny too, Babs, because I was just having a
yeah.
conversation with someone this week where like we were talking about like I was kind of reflecting on like my work in like my post-college days of like working at the LGBT community center and doing a lot of like gender and sexuality education for the broader community, right? Like what is gender? What is sexuality? What's a pronoun? Like all of these things and like how can we better support like LGBT people? And like feeling that like oh like sigh of relief when people are able to like when we're given permission to like be our full selves, right? Like when
Mhm.
someone's like, you can just be you, like you don't have to like fit in this box. You don't have to fit in this box. Like you can just be you. And then everyone's like, what? I can be me. And then everyone starts
Yeah.
expressing. But the people who want us controlled, like that is scary. That is
Yeah.
threatening. That's why we're seeing this backlash. That's why
Yeah.
there's all this language about like, like the whole like like grooming, like the grooming or whatever, where it's like, no, like all we did was say you get to be you. No, really though, it's okay to be all of you. And they're
Yeah.
like, really? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I can play. I can like experiment. I get to like try this out. I don't have to be this cookie cutter version of like what you said is pure and right.
Mhm.
Um and that freedom, like that's like what we're seeing the backlash against right now is people are freeing themselves and the
Yeah.
system is scared. Like people are liberating themselves and saying, nah, that might have been the way, but not anymore. And the system like is quaking.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think going back to that, like the topic of Karening, like Karening is, I think, like a voice in white women of trying to keep people in line, right? Like trying to like enforce the rules and being the enforcer.
Ooh,
Um,
Babs.
but
That,
subconsciously, but it's unconscious, right? And yeah, because one of the things that really blew me away in our conversations last year in Kairos, um, about racial healing and social justice was to hear some of the women of color. And I felt like, and this is where I was so grateful for this community because some of the women of color in that community, I had conversations with them where they were like, white women are the primary tools of white supremacist patriarchy. And I was like, what? Nah, I wanted to say, no, sir, isn't it white men, like white women? Like, what do you, I felt thick as a
Mhm.
brick. I could not understand that at all, but I trusted them, because of the relationship I had with them through Kairos and the sisterhood we had. I was like, all right, I can feel my programming wanting to push against this. and reject it or resist it or refute it, but I didn't, right? That's the first thing to learn. Don't refute it. Like listen, and be willing to change, be willing to believe it. But like that's a big part of healing. Karenism, right? Is my the Karen in me would have been like that was the part that wanted to say, that's not true. Like, what do you mean? You know, um, that's my Karen voice apparently. Um, but to just be able to sit with the discomfort and be like, okay, there's a lot of me that wants to refute this right now, but I'm not gonna. And then to have to sit with it, like, okay, I trust them that in their experience as women of color walking in this world, that's what they know to be true,
Mhm.
which doesn't mean it's capital true, right? But it's their truth. So if that's the reality they've walked, then I want to learn about this. You know what I mean?
And I love that you brought that up, Babs, because like
Yeah.
right when you first had said something about like white women being the enforcers, like the first thing that dropped in was like because we're the moms and this we taught the kids how to stay safe, right? How do
Right.
we stay safe? We
Yes.
comply, right?
Yep.
Because like the generations of witch trials, right? And like all of the lynching showed us like if you step out of line,
Yeah.
you're dead, period.
Yep.
And so how do we keep our children safe? We make sure they do not step out of line.
Yep.
We keep our community
Absolutely.
safe by enforcing the rules vigilantly, right?
Yes. And that's why
Like,
I love in our housekeeping, and this was the other one that really stepped up. Point, was I noticed today was the whole assuming positive intent, right? Like if you're coming from an orientation of assuming positive intent, like for me with those conversations with those women, I was like, okay, so they're helping me learn something here. If I had assumed negative intent, like they're attacking me and they're judging me and then it would have been a different response. But because the container we were in, I was like, okay, I'm assuming positive intent. Um, yeah,
mhm. Well, and then that question
big.
of becomes like, how do we break free from the rules, right? Because I also was just having a conversation this week about how like that's one of my like weird, like you wouldn't think it about me, but I feel really, really uncomfortable breaking rules, right? So like if there's a sign that's like, don't do this, I'm like, we can't do that this summer. You know what I mean? And like my
Totally.
partner's always like, it's fine, Kristen. Like we can, you know what I mean? And I like I have a memory in college of gosh, I think they were like demolishing a space or totally redoing it. So all of the art students were just like tagging it and doing art and because like it was about to be like demolished anyway. And so like my roommate who was an art major and one of my other good friends who was also like in a lot of art, we all like went and my nervous system like was so dysregulated. They were like, "What's wrong with you, Kristen? Like, do you need to go somewhere?" Like while they were like doing the spray paint, because I was so like scared of breaking the rule. You know what I mean? Like, um, and I have my own like this life experiences with like wanting to be the good girl, right? Like I get praise if I'm the good girl, so like let me just keep doing that. But
Yeah.
like it's interesting to notice that in me and be like, that's not a real rule. We don't actually have to follow that. It's okay.
Yeah.
like like learning how to speak up against like towards authority, right? Like learning how to like disagree with the person who has the power, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I do that pretty freely.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh. Mm,
Ugh.
mm.
Feels like each of these things could be a massive conversation, like spin-off conversation.
Always.
Like
Well,
Yeah.
it's also nuanced and deep and entrenched and everywhere. It's like,
And all intermingled. It all intertwines, right? That's like the fabric of this programming that's in us, right?
yeah,
Is there
I mean,
yeah.
it
anything
is
else
like
you
a
want to?
cloak that we have to like kind of like take off like a yoke or cloak kind of thing that we have to just remove. Like,
Yeah. And yet it's
I'm
kind of
feeling ready
enmeshed
to,
in us. Yeah. Is there
yeah.
anything else about Karening that is alive for anybody right now that we haven't really touched on before we kind of go into a healing?
I have some more subtle things that I'll bring up at some point, but one thing that feels very overarching for a lot of white people that I know is is that like the overwhelm, the overloading our schedules, like being so busy. And what I notice is that there are things that I want to get to, like educating myself about racial justice, educating myself about how white supremacy breathes and moves and develops and exists in our culture. Um, and I'm pretty good now about seeking those things out. But I have a very definitive history of being too busy to do it,
Mm.
or too busy to go to rallies. And I will acknowledge too, like, there is a time for everything, and there are many of us who can stand shoulder to shoulder and step in when somebody is nursing a baby and things like that. um, but one of the prime ways of weaponizing our culture against us so that this division, the divisive culture continues, is by keeping us all so busy and always so numbed out and overworked and exhausted that we don't have the bandwidth to educate ourselves, to have these conversations that are heart opening and eye opening, and to find our place in this resistance and in this time when we are being asked to step forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The phrase I was hearing when you were saying that, Clarissa, is like, we just don't even have the energy to care,
Yeah.
And like we're seeing that, right? Like that, this is the result of like what happens when everyone's so zapped that like we can't care. We don't have.
Yeah. And part of that is the intentionally pitting us against each other,
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
right? It just exhausts you to constantly be getting like they're the way, it's yeah.
Well, and it's so interesting because I've been like off my kind of meditation practice for a while. And so I wasn't having like a really strong stillness practice.
Mm.
And I kind of picked it back up this week. And it showed me like how much when I do not have a consistent stillness, grounding kind of like place to land, my nervous system is so like kind of primed for danger,
Mm.
right? So like
Mm.
I was like, why do I keep like getting on the internet and scrolling? Like, what is this compulsion that is making? And as I was sitting with it, it's like, as soon as I started to relax, right? As soon as I would start to feel like relaxed and safe, something in me would be like, no, orient towards the danger. There's danger. Find it, orient, find it, find it. Where is it? Right? Like, and it's like, okay, like at some point we need to just be like, okay. But for me at least, like it's particularly in the morning. It's like when my body wakes me up, I need to just go and like sit and like let myself have that, or else I feel this like manic, like unexplainable fear and just like constantly trying to find like where's the tiger? Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like a lot of people live in that and don't realize that they're in it,
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that
Because
we're
when I
having
think,
this conversation.
Greg,
Sorry.
what were you gonna say? Go ahead,
I was
Clarissa.
just going to say, I love that we're having this conversation because a lot of people might not associate that with being a Karen,
Right.
mm,
and like the epitome of what that means to be a Karen. And I don't think any one of us would ever like honestly point a finger at any of the other ones and be like, "Oh my God, you're such a Karen," right? Like we are not the embodiment, like the walking face of what that means, and yet this Karening behavior lives within all of us. That it lives in our nervous systems. It's a safety mechanism. It is like we have been so um, primed, like you were saying, Kristen, for survival
Hmm.
that we are willing to go to great lengths to protect us and our progeny, like the ones that we are close to.
Right.
And I would love to expand the world to have that included as like we are all brothers and sisters as members of the human race. And this culture has kept us from being in the truth of that.
Right.
But I just think it's really important that we are naming these subtle and not so subtle ways that this divisive behavior and programming exists within our bodies.
Yeah.
Because when we start to go, oh, well, I'm not as bad as that, but I actually do have some ways where this shows up, and have it be
Mhm.
okay to start to unpack that. And I love, Babs, that you talked about the righteousness earlier.
Yeah.
Start to notice where we have that, because that's how we get to that place of brotherhood of man, of sisterhood of man, of sisterhood of woman,
Humanhood of, yeah.
where
Yeah.
we are existing in this culture of love. And that is the driving force rather than the division.
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah, because that's ultimately at the root of Karening, right? Is not feeling safe
Yeah.
and
Ooh,
therefore trying to defend,
yeah.
seeing threat where it doesn't exist because you're
Mm.
primed, your nervous system, like you were saying, Kristen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because if you feel
Mm-hmm.
safe and not in scarcity, like all of those things, when your nervous system's just really calm, right? You don't have to be Karening.
Mm-hmm.
The other,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stick a pin in another topic that maybe we can talk about next time is the positive, like how to take Karening and use it for good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's a little tickler for another conversation because
Karen
that's a good one.
Powers.
Yeah. Right. All right. So let's do some Karen healing, shall we?
Yeah. And just like we've been talking about so many things that I feel like span generations and have found their way into our like genetics, like our mitochondria, like DNA, like fascia, it's like in our physical bodies. And again, as white folks, we spend so much time like, I need to learn more, I need to know more, I need to learn more, I need to know more. But then our bodies are still responding
Yeah.
in the same way. You know what I mean? Even if we know, we're still responding. And so it's like, to the body we go.
Yeah. To the body we go. Yeah.
Does anyone feel called to start us out?
I can start us. So let's all, if it feels right, go ahead and allow your eyes to close. And again, honoring your body above all else, really. If it doesn't feel right to close your eyes, then allow your eyes to stay open, but allow your gaze to soften. Maybe find something that your gaze can land on, but not have to focus on. But if it feels right to close your eyes, just feeling your body right now in this moment, having had this conversation, having been listening in. These conversations are by definition evocative. They bring things up, and that's part of the magic and medicine of them, to bring it up so it can be moved out and healed. Because if it's bringing something up, that means it's in there. So it's actually a gift for it to come up. Because then it can be seen and held and loved, and then it can heal. So just noticing now, what's your body feeling like right now? What are you noticing? Is there any area that's feeling tight or shoulders kind of tight and hunched up at all? Or are they dropped and relaxed? Are you noticing any muscular tension anywhere in your body, in your lower back, in your legs, in your hands, or your arms? Just noticing, taking an inventory here, and anything you notice, not trying to fix it, doesn't mean there's anything wrong. Just going, oh, look at that. Huh, my right calf is tight. I feel tension in my feet. Interesting. Oh, look at that. My forearms feel kind of achy. Huh. Just noticing. Allowing your breath to deepen. I'm taking a moment here as you're still noticing those sensations in your body to connect set the intention to connect into and notice what this programming we're talking about, how it lives in your body, where it lives, what it feels like. This programming that we've all learned, much of it is subconsciously learned. Might not have been direct lessons we were taught, but it got in nonetheless. Just asking your body, where does this live in you? And just breathing for a few moments here as you allow that answer to come to you. Just see what your body reveals. You might notice a particular area that has some density to it or some heaviness or anything's possible. Just keep asking, how do I carry this programming in my body? And if you notice any resistance to the reality that you carry programming in your body, just reassuring yourself here for a moment, reminding yourself that you're in a space of love, of non-judgment, that no matter what you might find, what you might carry, it doesn't make you a bad person or in any way unlovable. And your acknowledgement of it and connecting to it actually makes you so lovable. It's all really okay. And we get to together find these places within ourselves in which it lives and love them back to health, back to flow, back to breath, back to calm. It's all okay. We're here together. And if either Kristen or Clarissa, if you feel anything that you would like to add.
Yeah. So I'm going to invite us to just tap back in to those places in our body, in our energy fields where we were feeling this programming, this white supremacist programming, this Karen programming, this white fragility, this white privilege. Just coming into contact with those places. And we don't need to consciously know where those places are, but just allowing ourselves to be present to the knowing that they live in us somewhere. And as we feel ready, I'm going to invite each of us to claim a willingness to release this programming completely, claiming our ability to completely detach from this right now. And so, with that willingness, with the claiming of the full release of this programming, I'm just going to invite the programming to start unhooking, to start releasing, to start letting go, to start fleshing out. If we work with guides, angels, ancestors of the highest light, inviting them in to help us remove it, maybe offering it to them, giving it into the hands of our angels, giving it into the hands of our guides, letting them take it from us, letting them remove it. It doesn't serve us anymore. It doesn't hold promise anymore. It's not keeping us safe. We can let it go. We can let it go. And feeling this holy fire, unconditionally loving, wise, sacred energy available to us. And if we want, we can invite this energy into our physical bodies, into the area around us, inviting this energy to go wherever it needs to, so that we can be an embodiment of this love that we are, so that we can be released of these cycles of harm, so that we can be free, of all of these systems that oppress us and keep us down and small. Just allowing the energy of love to move through our systems, to work on us on a DNA level, going into our mitochondria, going into our DNA, just reattuning us to the energy of safety, to the energy of love, to the energy of trust, reattuning us to unity, connection, oneness, wholeness, not as a bypass, but as a reprogramming, so that we can remember all that these systems of oppression would rather we forget. We are sovereign, divine beings. We are embodiments of soul, Holy Spirit, incarnate here and now. We are not tools. We are not worker bees. We are not pawns. And inviting in here, actually, our soul's highest mission, that which brought us here to planet Earth right now, that which called us into embodied form in this moment, connecting in to that purpose, to that calling, to the lessons, to our place, our role in all of this. Mm. And for all the parts of us that might be feeling resistance, just sending those parts of us love. They're allowed to be here. They're allowed to be here. They're welcome here. Any part of us that might be maybe worried of what might happen when we're truly free, just comforting, sending love to that part of ourselves who has found so much safety in this constriction, who has found so much safety in the abiding by the rules. Just sending that part of ourselves love. That's something within us that feels maybe worried at what freedom feels like. Just allowing ourselves to hold that part of ourselves with love. And maybe reaching back, sending love back through our DNA, back through our bloodline, to all those who came before us, just sending love because whatever they did enabled us to be alive right now. And so honoring their choices, whether they're right or wrong, led us to be able to be here now. So sending some love and gratitude back to all those who survived so that we could live free now. Clarissa, are you feeling like anything wants to move through you?
Yes. Also honoring that they may have made choices, these ancestors of ours, they may have made choices that were questionable or unethical in order to survive so that we could be here. And there is some piece that knew that we were coming in here now at this time collectively when there was a massive global awakening and people were ready finally to wake up enough to start this movement, to continue this movement, to take up the movement that has been carried by the vulnerable of the population at the hands of white supremacy, of patriarchy, of dominator culture, and join forces and step to the front lines and give the weary a rest so they can do some deep restorative healing work. Rest is the word that just keeps coming to mind, and allow us to take up the mantle, allow us to step in and have these conversations, to let ourselves be vulnerable in a way that is now, I was going to say held by source, but I honor the sanctity of source flowing through this movement all along. And now we have kept ourselves separate from source, but we are joining this fight with source on our side. And we are fighting for humanity, not fighting against one another, but fighting for the future that we envision, which is all beings sovereign, all beings free, all beings knowing the divinity that they are and seeing and holding that with and for each other. And so honoring that all of those choices that happen along our timelines and our ancestral timelines paved the way for this reckoning, for this time in space, in time for us to come and collectively do this deeply restorative work and create the movement, pick up the movement, continue the movement, add force, life force energy to the movement that is actually going to create the change for everyone. And so taking a deep breath, letting the ownership of any of that that resonates move through your body. And if there's still any part that feels unsafe, that feels questioning, that feels resistant, all of that is okay. And that is why we are here, and we get to have these conversations, to hold these sacred conversations with one another and hear each other and be held by one another. And breathing in that, what if this is the time? What if this is the time? What if we came in perfectly for this moment to stand shoulder to shoulder and heart to heart as we walk forward during these times that can feel very scary, very triggering, and honoring that the scariness of it is a perpetuation of the old. It is an intentional tool of the dominator culture. And so as we get each other's back, as we choose to have courage in the face of it, we get to bring love to the fight and allow that to begin to dismantle the programming from the inside out, both within ourselves, but also collectively. Oh, so just taking a breath in for that, honoring this spirit of love, if that is source energy, God, goddess, nature, however that resonates for you, the ancestors, the spirit of the ancestors, and the generations to come, calling them in for this moment in time. And they are already here, but just letting them know that we are here for it. We might not always, quote unquote, get it right, but we are here for it. We are here to learn, and we have got each other as we do. So taking one last deep breath in all the way down to your toes, maybe feeling into those roots that might still be in the earth, just sending some gratitude out through those roots into Mother Earth, out to all of the other beings who are connected to her. Feeling the power of that connection, the pulsing of life through those roots. Honoring that you can drop in anytime, and she is always holding us. We'd love to bring in this permission of the consent with her as well, and letting her just provide for us and hold us as we are on this sacred march forward toward liberation and light and love for all. So withdrawing those roots now, coming back up into your body, bringing with you anything that will serve you on your path going forward, and releasing anything that no longer serves you, or anything that is not yours, any energy that is not yours, just letting it fall away. You be offering it to the light, offering it to Mother Earth to be transmuted, composted. Oh, feeling the gratitude that we can do that. We can let go and let it be transformed. And as you're ready, taking another deep breath in, beginning to feel your feet on the floor, your butt on the chair, the air on your skin, maybe bringing slight movements to your body. Maybe some deep breaths to continue releasing and coming back into the feeling of your physical body. Thanking it for carrying you as you're on this mission in this lifetime, being the vessel through which you get to experience life. Mhm. And as you're ready, begin to withdraw your energy from this space. coming back fully into your body in sovereignty,
Mm.
honoring your beautiful, unique energy signature that is you. And beginning to come back into the space, gently blinking your eyes open, getting to notice the room around you. Oh,
Mm.
there's one last thing I wanted to share here. A dear friend gave this to me this week, and I'll read it. This beautiful printed, laminated quote by Valerie Kaur. And it says, "So I close my eyes and reach my hand out in the dark, and I find your hand, and yours, and yours. There are thousands of us, millions of us who are awake now, awake to our connectedness, awake to our humanity, awake to love, and willing to risk ourselves for it."
Mm. Mm.
I cannot think of a more appropriate way to
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
up. So thank you,
Yeah.
Valerie.
Thank you.
And I just want to really honor, like, you know, as you guys know, like I've been kind of like in these kind of conversations for a really long time. And there's like a completely different frequency and holding in the way that like we are engaging in this conversation that feels unlike like any other space I've been in because of how like held and embodied we are as individuals, right? Because like I'm just going to share this anyway. But like I remember at when George Floyd was murdered was around the time that I like stepped up into like leadership in like a group in New Orleans. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I just remember being in the book club meeting virtually for White Fragility, and there was just this like chaotic, frenetic energy in the field. And there were a lot of people on this Zoom call. There were like multiple pages of people on the Zoom call. And it was before I really was in my self-trust. And so I still like held myself back a lot from saying things. But there was something like spirit was like moving in me, like you have to speak, like you have to come up off mute and you have to like speak. And I did. And I don't remember what I said, but what I remember was that after I spoke, that the field changed,
Mm.
right? Like we went from like this like frenetic to like boom, like we were here, right? And that was when like the leaders like reached out and were like, "Hey, you want to like co-facilitate with us?" And I was like,
Oh, wow.
"Yeah, yeah, I do." And that was the first time that I read My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem, and like we
Mm.
held that we called it like an embodied reading collective. But I just want to say like I can feel a difference in how like we are showing up here, and so I just want to really like honor that and like because that speaks to the like meshing of like the healing work we've been doing and this like facing truth kind of thing. Like it enables us to be present with the discomfort. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to name
Really
that.
appreciate that. And one of the things that's alive for me as we're wrapping up here is like I really in my heart, when I was telling the story about Nancy Mace earlier, right? Like I really want to be a space where people, no matter who, like even we'll call her the Central Park Karen, like if she were to want to be able to find a space where she could go and have conversations and and do that process of like, wow, this is how this lives in me. Like I want to be that kind of a space where no matter who it is, if the desire and the intention is to heal, then that's the space that I want to hold.
Mm.
No, what is it that like no, there are no, you said this before, Kristen, and my mind's just a little blank right now.
No throwaway people.
No throwaway people. There are no throwaway people. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I just feel like it feels important for me to say that
Yeah,
as a
thank you.
desire and intention. Yeah.
That is a beautiful intention and point. And one of our conversations I feel wants to be focused on othering,
Mm,
how we separate ourselves by saying we are
yeah.
different than them and they are different from us.
Yeah.
Just
Another
doing that.
one. think we've got a few pins, don't we, stuck in conversations from today. Yeah. Well, this has been amazing as always. I appreciate
Yeah.
you ladies so
So,
much.
yeah, wonderful. Well, until next time.